Now. We're going to get started now.
Awesome.
Do you want a chair?
No. I like being, This is easier. So we're just going to start with just tell me your first and last name.
Sure. I'm Adam Gerhard.
Okay. We'll do your first and last name and the position at the church.
The position, do I need to make one up?
Pardon?
I've transcended leadership positions.
You've transcended.
I'm on this, so I'll tell you my name. Okay, I'll start with that.
So the first and last name, position, and the organization.
Okay. So I'm Adam Gerhard. I'm part of the Space Redevelopment Team or committee at St. Mary's Road United Church in Winnipeg.
And what are you doing at St. Mary's Road United Church?
Yeah,
St. Mary's Road United Church in Winnipeg. What exactly are you doing with the Reimagine team at St. Mary's Road United Church?
So we were exploring options to, with our space, to have essentially more impact with the space that we've got. So we've gone through a bit of an exercise to figure out what's possible. We've been talking about this for a long time at the church about how to make better use of our space. And so knowing what's possible was a really important place to start. They helped a lot with that. And now we're moving into sort of a second phase saying, okay, we know what's possible. Now how can we actually do that kind of work? So exciting to start to look at actual development options and actually having more impact with the space that we've got.
And tell me a little bit about the history of the church that kind of brought you to this point and the decision to look at how can you be more impactful in the community.
Sure. So St. Mary's Road United Church is an amalgamation of 3 churches all on St. Mary's Road. And so we, back, I'm going to say 20 years ago, but it's not, it's in that kind of ballpark. We were looking to figure out how we can all be sustainable. The 3 churches were all active and had some good programs and weren't sort of at a risk point in their development, but could see where that was going. There was all this sort of slow decline in these 3 churches. And we thought there's no point in having 3 buildings so close together that were essentially doing the same ministry work. We could come together and do more and have more impact. So we amalgamated those 3 congregations. That was an exciting, challenging time to bring those 3 churches together. And for a while there, it was fantastic. So we had a much bigger congregation. We had the ability to have more impact. We had more funds. We had more people. We had all the kind of vibrancy that comes along with that. So that was very exciting. But the decline continued. And so we're at a point again where we're saying, look, we're still doing great work. We've got lots of stuff going on. We're impactful. We're making a difference. We're a meaningful place. We have work to do. We believe God is calling us to do work, but we can see where this is going. And so we need to do something different. We've also recognized that we use our space much differently. COVID had a really interesting impact on our congregation. We have 2 worship paths that we operate on a Sunday. So a contemporary and a traditional service, they were running sort of parallel at the same time, but then we were starting to stagger them a little bit. But one was in sort of a sanctuary. We have 2 big spaces for sanctuaries. One, the contemporary service was in one sanctuary and the traditional service was in the other. During COVID, we stopped everything for a while and came back with mostly just the traditional service or the contemporary service because we could run the space differently. We could space people out differently. It had air conditioning. It had technology for streaming. And so for 5 years, we have not been back in the traditional sanctuary. And we looked at that and said, this is not the impact that we can have with this space. We need to have more impact with this space. And so what do we do? Because we're not, and the congregation has shifted in 5 years, we're not going back into that traditional sanctuary in the way that it is now. So what do we do? And how can we have impact with this building that is more than just us on a Sunday, and it is more than us on a Sunday, but there's even more that we could do. So that's where some of the conversations have been going. They've been going on for a while, and so that's where we started to get involved with 311 to say, okay, what is even possible here? Can we build? Can we renovate? What could we do? And then how do we now go and do it?
And just 2 more questions.
Yeah, that was a long answer.
That was a great answer.
Okay.
Great background. What has your journey with 311 looked like so far?
Starting out, we've done a lot of visioning with our church. I think we've had quite a bit of experience with that because part of amalgamating required that. I think we've also been attentive to that to make sure that we're doing the right things. We kind of knew vision-wise what we wanted to have in terms of our worship experience and how we wanted to have impact in the world. And so some of what we know Relevant has been able to do with congregation is come in and do that visioning stuff. We didn't need as much of that, but we did need a lot of help with art of the possible, figuring out where we could, how do we engage with different, the city and zoning and that kind of information. How do we take what the vision is and then work with what we want to do and what's possible? So we've engaged with folks from 11. They came in and worked with our team. We had a team that the congregation essentially appointed to do this work, and we've worked with them for probably a year or so, a little bit more than a year now. And that initial work was all around that, taking the vision, understanding that vision, and then going out and seeing, okay, what's possible with your space, knowing what you want to do with it, and then coming back and saying, here's what we could do. And so they laid out several options for us, because we had to eventually get the congregation on board to say where we're going to go. Does it mean we can build new, whatever it is here? Does it mean we can renovate? Does it mean we turn into a social space? Does it mean, what are some of the options? What could we do with it? So they came back with some really clear options. They looked at our congregation financially. They looked at what's happening in the city. We looked at what's happening politically. They looked at sort of the impact we want to have and some of the partnership, and came back and said, look, here's some options. Really clear recommendation with one of them, which was really helpful, but other options because the congregation might need to make some different choices. And so that was really helpful as we then were able to take that to the congregation to frame it, to say, look, here's where we are. We know the vision. We all agree on the vision, and we had to do a little bit of work around getting the congregation to remember that, but we were all on the same page for the most part. And then say, based on that, based on the vision where we want to go and these options, here's where we would recommend going. And the congregation had some really great conversations. Relevant helped us with that. We facilitated some of it ourselves and got to a point where the congregation accepted a fairly bold vision that could see redevelopment of our entire space, which may mean, frankly, tearing down the whole building and building something new there, which could be really exciting, but also fairly. There's a lot with that, right? If you're willing to put the whole thing into a redevelopment, it means letting go of a lot of things. And so had some really good conversations with folks in the congregation, and we've had stories. During one of those sessions, we had a number of people stand up, frankly, who we thought might sort of resist some of this stuff. Who said, "Look, this is my space. I've been here my whole life. I grew up here. I love this space. I don't want to see it go, and also this is the right decision." And so seeing that and hearing that helped people sort of say, "Yeah, this is bold. This is exciting. It's terrifying, and we need to do it." And so now we're taking the next steps to see how we live into that. So what can we do? How do we build it? So that's where we're going. It's exciting and terrifying and awesome. And Relevant's been really helpful, sort of along the way with us to sort of help guide us into some of these decisions that are big and scary.
Awesome. Last thing, and I think you've already actually covered it, but I just want to make sure I capture this piece. And can you start with what we're most excited about is, and then answer that question, what are you most excited about?
Mm-hmm. What we're most excited about is the potential for impact. I don't think any of us really understood when we were looking at the possibilities around redevelopment about the potential that we could have to impact, that our space could do so much more. And it's been exciting. We've started to look at that. It took us, I think this is how we got the congregation from the point of being scared, which this is a scary big decision, to the point of being excited. And the amount of impact we can have, because that's what we want to do with this, is have impact in the community. We want to have, and we run a lot of ministries out of this. We run a food bank, and there's a daycare, and there's a bunch of other stuff. And we have a ministry of space, is what we call it, about how we offer space to organizations that either typically can't afford space or just need space that isn't available in other places. And so having that, being able to do that, but really like amp it up and even more, partnering with social enterprises, looking at how we can weave in some of the Indigenous community impact they need to bring to get them out of bring them from the inner city to where we are, create space for that. There's just some of the partnerships and the conversations we've had with them, what they want to be able to do. Super exciting. So that's the kind of stuff that gets us exciting. There is possibility in here. So we've gone from a place of, we have this albatross around our neck, which is this big building that we're not using and we're not really having the impact, to saying, what if we just free ourselves from that? And holy smokes, the potential and the possibility. So we've moved from a pace of worry and concern to possibility and excitement, and that's where we're going.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Come on.